Hello, and welcome to another episode of Book Raider, where I raid the library in search of cool books and try not to break the bank because books are super expensive, especially in Canada. The book I'm doing today is Conscious, a brief guide to the fundamental mystery of the mind. I was reading that backwards from the screen, the mirror image, by Annaka Harris. This is a fun little book. It's very brief, very short. You could read it if reading is your thing and you're a fast reader. I'm not a fast reader, but if you are, you probably get through this bad apple, good apple, enjoyable apple in fairly briefly. Now, this book is awesome because it looks at a fundamental question and in many ways gives us ammunition to pontificate it, to wonder it, right? It doesn't necessarily give us answers because consciousness, or to be conscious, is one of the timeless questions, as in, what is time? Does God exist? Timeless questions like that we sometimes have to make sort of ad hoc or personal experiential decisions or determinations on what those things are based on the knowledge that we have, both abstract and practical, our experiences and the things that we have learned, because we can't experience everything, just like we can't make every mistake once. Some mistakes we just have to learn we need to avoid, like crashing a hang glider or something like that, right? It's like the margin of error is much smaller than, say, falling out of a car or something like that. I have no idea. These are poor examples, but as I typically do. Anyways, this book, again, it just tries to tackle a fundamental question and give you some ammunition in wondering about it, right? It's not super heavy-handed. If anything, it's more like, these are the ideas that are out there, and these are the kind of concepts, and it's giving us language to consider complex ideas. It starts out by saying that consciousness, which, what is consciousness, is experience itself, and is therefore easy to miss the profound question staring us in the face each moment. Why would any collection of matter in the universe be conscious? And again, it goes on to say that if we are made up, let's focus in a little bit here. If we are made up of matter that it's just constantly being recycled in the universe, because matter cannot be destroyed or created, it can only be changed. So says science. I didn't come up with that. I've only heard it. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds very smart. I'm going to repeat that everywhere I go and just assume that it's correct. Anyways, that's what people say. Matter cannot be destroyed or created. It can only be changed. If that's true, then we're made up of the night sky that we look at, over a campfire. We're made out of stars. We're made out of all these things. We're recycled, but we're conscious. So if we're conscious, then what does that mean for the universe? Is the universe conscious? And that's another bit that she gets into with panpsychism. Now, again, because of our compositions, like, did people hundreds of thousands of years ago see the world the same way that we do? Probably not. Probably their conscious experience was different. Sure, they had hands and things like that, but I imagine that their hands were used to do a different set of things. While similar, they were a different set of things based in a different environment. The environment of people 100,000 years ago is hugely different from the environment that we have to navigate nowadays. Human beings are incredibly resilient, and we adapt. We adapt sooner than we evolve, I believe, but we're still making adaptations that are based on our environment. So that's why when we start to strip things down, and it's like, okay, well, what's an illusion versus what is an intuition, and we kind of, when we intuit things, it's like, what do you think is real? What do you think is to be true? And many people can think that the illusions that they're in are real. and this is again back to the consciousness book. This is what they talk about. What is an illusion and what is an intuition, I believe. Yes. And that brings up this next little part here that it says, an intuition, get more organized as I do these. An intuition is simply the powerful sense that something is true without our having an awareness or an understanding of the reasons behind this feeling. It may or may not represent something true about the world, may or may not. So it could still be an illusion. If I think that the internet is nature, that could be an illusion, right? If the internet is representative of nature, whereas the internet, what a confusing question. See, there you go again with a really crazy complex example. But the internet, I believe, is a nexus of consciousness, of information, and it all goes into there and it all kind of comes back. So we're all bringing our little our experiences into the internet. We're putting that in the comments, into the videos that we watch, and there's feedback and all this stuff. And the internet is kind of creating its algorithms or whatever through our own participation, right? It's not just doing it of itself, it's doing it through our participation. And then we're getting information back that is the collective information of everybody else around the world coming back to the person and changing their minds and their perspective. And that, to me, that sort of symbiotic relationship between the individual user of the internet and every user of the internet, the collective user, and then them getting the collective information back from everybody else, that's a symbiotic relationship. And I believe that that is artificial intelligence. I believe that what's happening there, this middle world, the nexus, that's the internet, it's already artificial intelligence that we're getting. There's no way 100,000 years ago that we would be able to get news of what's going on across the pond, as they now say, the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean or wherever, that we would be able to get information as quickly as we do now. And we're starting to see that the way that how quickly information disseminates is changing the way that things work, namely media information and the political going-ons in the world, social political going-ons in the world that can influence the direction of them. It used to be that the printing press was, we think of that as the information boom. Well, now we have the internet. So what an aside. In assistance, and she goes on to say that one, note the responses that first occur to you. This is talking about an intuition. So one, in a system that we know has conscious experiences, the human brain, what evidence of consciousness can we detect from the outside? And two, is consciousness essential to our behavior? So it's definitely like this book combines the artistic, the scientific, neuroscience, quantum physics, all kinds of things, again, in a way that is just, it's really, it's digestible. So she also talks about panpsychism, which I brought up. I did a previous recording. So if I'm repeating myself, my apologies, but panpsychism is this idea that everything possesses consciousness. Again, as I mentioned earlier, space, right? If we're able to be conscious to experience this moment, who's to say that other things do not? However, it's different based upon the cellular level. For example, we have so many millions and billions of cells, bacteria, things in our body that inanimate objects don't have, or plants, while they do possess, they move towards the sun, right? They do possess some sort of animate beingness. It's not to say that they experience it the same way that we do, because we have eyes, and I don't believe that plants have eyes, but they do have sensory organs. So again, you got to think, what does your eyes do? What does your skin do? What does your nose do? What do these things do? these individual sensory organs that build up and create our consciousness or how we experience the moment. And then she also talks about presentism versus eternalism, or how time and consciousness exist, and talks about how quantum mechanics, and if a ray of light, I'm going to mess this up, if a ray of light is going through like a filter, and if it's not being observed, it makes a ray, I think, like a ray of light. If it's being observed, it makes a particle. So it changes its form if it's being measured or observed. If it's recorded and then observed after the recording, it becomes a particle, if I'm getting that right. It changes essentially based on whether or not a conscious mind is observing it. What does that mean? Does that mean that a tree doesn't make a noise if it falls in the forest and nobody's around? I don't know. I mean, that'd be something crazy if it was. Anyway, so this is presentism. This is a little diagram she has. So do we just live in this moment? Am I just here right now in my, sitting on my bed, my little bouncy ball, wearing this shirt right now? But then when I look back at it, what does that mean for a recording, right? Is this moment forever frozen in time? Or is it eternalism, right? So are we only here in this moment right now, or are we every moment that we've ever been, both past and future? So the old man that I will hopefully one day become, provided nothing bad happens, the old man I hope to one day become, is that already within me? And the young person before me, is that still within me? And as I've shared my own philosophy, I believe that to be true, certainly of the past, that our inner child never dies. It's always within us. And it's part of our journey, part of our story to reintegrate, untangle, heal, discover, whatever it is that we must do with all of our parts to bring together a collective whole. And that's our purpose. And I do think that tapping in with our elders and helping older generations is part of healing and connecting to the part that we one day will inhabit as we grow older. And this kind of does echo Richard Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts, which I've also listened to as an audiobook. This one I read because it was short. And it echoes this idea that we need to tap into this idea of panpsychism. If everything has a consciousness, then we do need to be do we need to be respectful and mindful of it? Does that change the way that we should intercorrelate with our universe, with our world? So once again, consciousness, great little short book. Check it out. You'll enjoy it. It will give you information for the conversation, but it will not tell you what the conversation is. And I think that that's a wonderful approach for information. Thank you for listening.